What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast. I am, of course, your host who does the most, Ethan Smith. Hope you all are having a phenomenal Friday, December 17th. If you haven't had a chance to go see Spider-Man No Way Home, please go see it. It's a phenomenal movie. I got to see it last night, but don't spoil it for any of your friends. I'm not here to spoil it for you because obviously this is a Pirates podcast and I wouldn't do it anyway. But hopefully you all are having a phenomenal start to your weekend as we are once again joined by Mr. Adam Bittner today of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, where we are continuing 2022 player profiles. And today it's going to be kind of an interesting player profile just because we're going to be talking about the middle infield, just the logjam that there's going on there with the likes of O'Neal Cruz, Kevin Newman, Diego Castillo, Tucupita Marcano, Mike Escato, all those guys. So we're going to be talking about that in length today. But I also want to thank you guys so much for making me your first listen of the day every single day. You can follow this podcast on Twitter at Locked On Pirates or follow me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan. You can also find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Odyssey, and Google Play. And with all that said, guys, you know when the music hits, it's time to get real. So let's go ahead and have a fun episode.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And alrighty, everyone, welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast. For another Friday, we have Mr. Adam Bittner to my right. Hopefully everything is going well for you, Adam. We actually have a new background for the crossover, so hopefully everyone likes it. Got his Twitter down there as well, all nice and fancy and everything, so you guys can actually see it now instead of him having to tell you all the time. But Adam, how are things going for you? Everything going good?
Yeah, going well. Sorry I missed you guys last week. I've been telling Ethan I've been moving into a new house, so it's a process, but we're gonna get there.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, hey, always a good time to move into a new house right now. It's kind of like a really good Christmas gift, with Christmas being literally next week. But I've been telling people Christmas seems like it's like a year away, and it's literally next week. It makes no sense to me. I still have to finish my Christmas shopping because I'm slacking. Sorry, Mom, Dad, and sister, I'm slacking. My bad. But I will get it done. Just like the Pirates will hopefully get whatever this logjam at middle infield is done at some point. And we've been doing 2022 player profiles so far. We got with Roberto Perez, Yoshi Tsutsugo, and Michael Chavis in the last episode. So go check that out if you have not seen it yet. So today we're going to be talking about mainly the middle infield. And there's a lot going on here, Adam. I think we all both know that. I believe there's 9 people, including Michael Chavis, technically listed as a middle infielder who can also play first base. There's 9 guys on this 26-man roster, 40-man roster right now that the Pirates are going to have to choose from at some point. And with the CBA right now, it's kind of difficult because we don't even know if we're really going to get a lengthy spring training to actually get the battle that we were going to see here between a lot of these guys like Kevin Newman, O'Neal Cruz, Cole Tucker, Tucupita Marcano, got just to name a few, and Rodolfo Castro. Who do you think has a chance to really separate themselves from the mold of these, like this big logjam, and realistically be the starter at shortstop and second base?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult question, like you said, because of the work stoppage and the implications that could have on people's ability to compete. I think the longer it goes, the more it helps guys like Kevin Newman and Cole Tucker, because they're somewhat proven commodities at the big league level. They really didn't play well for most of last season, but Newman in particular played some pretty great defense, and Tucker was really swinging it well toward the ends there. With some of his new swing regimen. So I think those guys will have the advantage in the early going, but I think this is not going to be like 2021 where, Newman in particular kind of was on scholarship, right? And he was able to kind of just hold down that spot all year despite the way his bat was going. I think this year, if he starts slow again, I don't think he's going to get the same benefit of the doubt. And I think that definitely goes for Cole Tucker. I think, he was almost on his way out of the organization if he didn't have that hot start. I think he would have been one of the guys on the chopping block, especially with the Rule 5. If they'd had the major league portion of the Rule 5 draft, he might have been on the chopping block. Fortunately for him, they didn't have the major league Rule 5, and I think the Pirates probably knew that all along. So they were able to make decisions with that in mind. So I think those guys, depending upon how they feel about O'Neal Cruz, I think he's the person that people want in that shortstop spot right now. I certainly do. I know there's some people who want to see him in the outfield, but I want to see that kind of physical specimen at least try at the shortstop spot and see if it can work out. I'm intrigued by the possibility, especially because the Pirates probably aren't going to be that good next year. So I think there's reason to want to see that work. And as far as the other guys go, I think you're going to have to see some struggles from some combination of those three guys for some of those guys to get a chance, especially if there's a shortened spring training. And they're probably going to have to excel at AAA to kind of earn that promotion. I don't know. It's possible one or two of them might end up in those bench roles and be able to push guys for playing time at the major league level. I think this franchise certainly needs an Adam Frazier, Josh Harrison type to kind of step in and kind of be that utility man. But for now, I think that's the way things are shaping up.
Yeah, and you mentioned a utility man, and I think that's where Tucupita Marcano in particular is going to really make himself stand out. Of course, he was the acquisition in the Adam Frazier trade to San Diego, and the first thing I saw about him whenever I was reading about him when he got traded here was he's basically Adam Frazier light. He's not as good as Adam Frazier just yet, but he has that ability to just basically play anywhere. He can play second base, shortstop, third base if need be on a Key Brian Hayes off day, and the corner outfield spots. And of course, in my next player profiles, we'll probably be getting a little bit into the outfield, and there's some guys there that are intriguing also. And I agree with you 100%. I would like to see what O'Neal Cruz can do at shortstop before you try moving him around. And if you are going to move him around, don't do it at the major league level. Just don't. It's not going to work out. It rarely ever does when you're trying a guy at a new position at the major league level. Do it in AAA. Do it in AAA just so you can make sure that everything is good. And as I'm getting calls today, apparently during the podcast, I'm a popular guy, guys. But apparently all of that is going on. So with all that stuff going on, I am trying to get them to get off. Anyways, with all of that stuff in the middle infield going on, we're going to be moving forward into that as well, thinking that there's a real chance that things are going to go down. And, I mean, what else can go down, Adam? Like, what else can really go down?
In terms of, who's going to play and, like, how things could unfold?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I think, it's along the lines of what we were talking about. And I'm curious to see how quickly the O'Neal Cruz situation does come along, because we did get to see him at the major league level in that last series last year. Mm-hmm. He hit that big homer, got people excited. I don't think we're going to see him at the major league level to start the season, just because I think they're going to want to Super 2 the guy. We're probably looking at a June, maybe July promotion, but that, mm-hmm. I think that requires him to continue excelling at AAA. I'm curious to see how that works. I'm curious to see how that logjam unfolds at AAA too, because you're not adding a ton of playing time, even going down there. I think you got more players. You got 4 middle infield spots, right? Mm-hmm. Between those two organizations. Who are going to be those guys that are playing every day at AAA is interesting to me too, because it might have some suggestions about the way things are going to go down. If once there's a promotion at the big league level, so there's I'm very interested to see how that goes. My favorite part of spring training is usually the competitions, because it seems like every year there's a guy who's able to step up and a name that you weren't really thinking about, being on the roster kind of proves himself. And, I would hate if we were this year, because I think, we've been robbed of that, the last couple of years with COVID. It's been difficult. I know we got a pretty full spring training last year, but, 2 years ago we really didn't. And I think that, that affected people's view of the organization and the talent that it has. So we'll see what they've got. We'll see what they've got from the labor standpoint and how that impacts things, because I think that is a significant part of it that could determine who's getting chances and who's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, realistically, I like how you put that. Love everything about that, and we're going to continue talking about this here in just a second. But I want to let you guys know about the wonderful people over at Built Bar. Of course, Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes just like a candy bar. Everything that you could have during this holiday season. Adam, especially for you, Built Bars are probably going to be good for you right now moving into this new house. I mean, realistically, they have a lot of protein in them. They're very, very delicious, very healthy, and best part, even better, they keep you going. They really do. They're amazingly low in calories, sugar, net carbs, and fat, and high in protein. There's so many different flavors to choose from, and Built Bar gives you that extra fuel to keep you going. Make sure you throw one in your jacket or purse. You never know when you're going to need it. Want to cozy up with something warm. I forgot to talk about these. The wonderful Built Bar Puffs. They're marshmallowy treats around the holidays that you can dip within your hot cocoa, your coffee, everything that you need. Makes everything taste phenomenal. Guess what? Built Bar is the best protein bars on the market, and if you want to grab some Built Bars for yourself, make sure you use that promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off of your next order when you head to BuiltBar.com. And before we also get into the next part of the podcast today, we are going to talk about one of my favorite apparel brands of all time, and that is Stance. Stance was founded in 2009 and represents a radical reinvention of socks, underwear, and active apparel. With a sharp focus on comfort, quality, and creativity, Stance brings an atypical aesthetic alongside some of pop culture's hottest collaborators for the ultimate in style and self-expression. Because everything you wear should be a direct extension of who you are and how you feel. Stance believes that the perfect fit matters more than fitting in. That's those who feel good, do good, and go see for yourself. Register for an account right now at Stance.com and get 15% off of your first purchase. Use the promo code LOCKEDON at checkout to apply, and enjoy the color and comfort of a life less ordinary with Stance. Now, getting back into the middle infield again, you've already kind of mentioned the guys like Kevin Newman, O'Neal Cruz, guys like that. There are some guys here that did get experience last year, like a Hoy Park, like a Rodolfo Castro. That's really those two guys. And then you see other guys that are kind of be on the cusp right there that are on the 40-man roster. What do you think it would take realistically for those guys that are on the lower end of the cusp to really bring something out and make sure that they can be a part of the future and then maybe even take over a starting job in 2022?
Well, I think we always, number one is injuries, right? If you see a Kevin Newman or if you see a Cole Tucker go down, that's immediately going to open up space for some of those guys. I think, it's also possible that Tucker could end up playing more in the outfield because that's where he was toward the end of last season. Depending upon how the Pirates' depth shakes out there. So that could open up a spot, if he functions more as an outfielder, even though he's been a middle infielder for most of his career. So that's number two. And number three, I think the Pirates are open to playing some of these guys. Hoy Park got a ton of playing time down the stretch. Rodolfo Castro got a call up last year, and we saw a fair amount of him. So clearly these are guys that the Pirates wanted to invest their limited playing time in. I think those guys might be in more of the hybrid area, between where Kevin Newman and Cole Tucker are, kind of having incumbent spots in the lineup, and some of these guys, further down the depth chart like Marcano, because they're already on the 40-man, and you can't just, let guys, hold on to 40-man spots if they're not going to produce for you in some way, or that you don't have, hopes for future production. So I think the pressure is maybe on those guys a little bit to perform and at least show that they can be, bench players for this team and eventually step in if there's an injury, and play every day if that's the case. So I think there's, something at stake for those guys this season, because if they don't play well, I think they're easy cuts come this time of year next year. When you might be looking to put together a roster that has a chance to win a bit more, and the games start to matter. So I don't think it's simply a matter of those guys wanting to just play well simply to maybe take over a starting role. I think they have to do well to stay in this organization. So I think that's an interesting dynamic to add to everything, because I don't think those guys are going to get scholarships if they don't play well.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. I mean, realistically, and you know that has to be in the minds of a lot of these guys. Now, if Kevin Newman gets traded eventually, which was kind of rumored before the work stoppage but didn't happen, the chances for a lot of these guys go up a little bit, but there's still no reason, even if Newman gets traded, to have 8 middle infielders on your 40-man roster. It doesn't really benefit you too much in the fact that realistically, outside of Tucupita Marcano and maybe Hoy Park, you're not really looking at a lot of these guys as super utility Adam Frazier, Josh Harrison types. A lot of these guys are just second basemen or shortstops. And that could end up limiting them in the future. It really can. And I mean, the thing is with me is you brought it up perfectly. This time next year, December 2022, we could already be talking about, say, Rodolfo Castro or Diego Castillo or one of these guys just being the odd man out, because then you look at the logjam at the middle infield that they have currently. That doesn't even include guys like Leo Verpiguero, Nick Gonzalez, who killed it at Greensboro this year. They're going to get another full year of development, hopefully, if things go well, and then you're going to add them to the mix at this point too. And I mean, it's kind of just a revolving door right now of just middle infielders at abundance. And then you're going to meet next week when you come on, we're going to probably end up talking about pitching if the schedule stays the way it is. Pitching's a lot the same way. And, I mean, there's no issue with this at all. You would obviously you want to have some quantity at the position, especially when it's with young players, because we all know every young player is not going to work out. We know that. Every young player is not going to work out. It just happens. So if you can have 8 guys that you look at that can play either second base or shortstop, I would say right now you have 2 proven commodities. I would say O'Neal Cruz is a proven commodity, and that's even still a stretch just because we haven't seen a lot of them at the major league level just yet. And Kevin Newman just because he's an established major league player. So that leaves 6 guys who have something to prove. You would guess that at least 1 or 2 of them would prove something, correct?
I mean, you would hope. I don't know if I'd guess,
Yeah.
but I think especially for guys like Park and Castro, like we were talking about, it's also excuse me. It's also possible that those guys could play well and then be part of trade packages, later in the season. I've already seen some, and this kind of horrifies me, but I've seen some suggestions that David Bednar could be on the block this year. Well, if you've got an extra, second baseman or shortstop to dangle, to kind of get a deal done for a player you really like, is that a deal you could make? Is that something that could push a deal over the edge and get yourself another impact prospect? I have a major problem with the concept because I think David Bednar's only been in the system for a year, right? He's only been in this organization for a year. He's a local guy. He's one of the few players on this team that I think, people get genuinely excited about. And the fact that we're already talking about the Pirates moving him for something, I don't like that. But I do think that's the type of scenario that you might be looking for as a Pirates fan, is if you're going to make some dump deals in July, if you throw in a Castro, if you throw in a Castillo, if you throw in one of these guys who are kind of, fringe players, can that help you get the prospect you want? Because other teams may not be as deep in the middle infield as you are. And so I think that's another reason you want to see those guys start well and play well, because, they could be trade chips, even though they're, technically prospects now. They could be the type of thing that gets you more of an impact guy down the road.
That's very true, and I like this point. So what we're going to do is hear from our wonderful people at betonline.ag and then get back to that point in just a moment. Of course, betonline.ag has you covered all season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football season continues to march to the playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all of the sports action this season. Head to their new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKED ON to receive your bonus, meaning if you put in $100, they will give you $50 of free money to bet on basketball, football, the NHL, boxing, and UFC right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all of the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. Bet Online is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports. Bet Online is where the game starts. Now, going back to that point, I think it would make a lot of people mad, yes, to see a lot of these prospects, per se, do very well. Cole Tucker, I think, is an interesting one, too, as well, because he's seen MLB time, and let's say Cole Tucker has a good first half and then gets traded. Realistically, that sounds like a good thing, right? Just because you're going to be trading a shortstop or a second baseman to another team that is like probably needs them a little more, and you're going to get prospect capital, as you said. That also being said, you have a lot of options here already. Is half a season really enough to figure out what those options are, or do you pull the plug on that and just do the entire year and then make those decisions in December?
Well, I think, probably the thing that matters most is what does this organization want to do, right? Because, it's not like they're just going to show up at spring training. Yeah, it's not like they're going to show up at spring training and there aren't going to be preconceived notions that Ben Cherington doesn't know how he already wants things to play out. He does. He knows which players he wants. O'Neal Cruz is probably one of them. Maybe he's open to someone else stepping into the long-term second base role, but I think that's what complicates things a bit is, the Pirates probably have a way that they want things to play out, and sometimes that doesn't, and that might require them to adjust their strategy. And like you said, with the Nick Gonzalez, with the Liover Peguero, those guys who are a little bit more highly rated than those guys who are on the big league fringes now. It sets up the possibility that you could have some unpopular trades with a guy like Cole Tucker. Where it looks like you're just moving on from a guy before he'd ever, be getting a payday, when in reality you're probably trying to just, open up space for the guys that you want. And I think, Nick Gonzalez definitely falls in that category of a guy that you want to work out for this organization because they have so much invested in him as a former first-round pick. So that makes that angle kind of adds a level of interest for me is what does this organization want? And I think this year is the year they're going to have to start showing their cards a bit.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of people before the Jacob Stallings trade really thought that this was going to be that kind of year, and it still is. I mean, it's still going to be that kind of year. Roberto Perez, who I talked about on the last episode, he's really going to be a Jacob Stallings type. He's going to do things like he's basically going to be Jacob Stallings back there, but he's not going to be as good as Jacob Stallings. I said that. But this is a proving ground year. This is if I had to compare it to pop culture, this is like the Hunger Games this year. Everybody's getting put in, and you know already who the favorites are. Brian Reynolds is staying, from what I know, from what I see, what I know. Ke'Bryan Hayes is staying. Realistically, after that, though, if you look around the diamond right now, especially in the middle infield, Yoshi Tsutsugo will probably stay too because of the lack of depth, and Roberto Perez as well because nobody's behind them. The outfield is like a lot of people right now. The logjam at middle infield that we've been talking about all episode. There's going to be a lot of guys that are going to need to get very good at-bats, very good playing time, and I hate to say this to some people, if you start picking favorites in this middle infield, it is going to probably be bad because it's very hard to give 8 different middle infielders quality playing time. I think nobody's going to disagree with me on that. It's just very difficult to give 8 different guys time at two positions. So is it going to be unfair to some of these prospects and some of these younger guys that they might not get as much time? Yes, it is. But if it benefits the team in the long run, which if you had to ask me what I want the future middle infield to look like, O'Neal Cruz, if he stays there, is my shortstop of the future. He was second in batted balls over 117 miles per hour last year in all of baseball, and he played 1 weekend of games. Just put that in perspective. That's crazy. Second base, Nick Gonzalez, I think, is the guy, but where does that put Liover Peguero? That's always the question I think that's going to be asked in about a year or two. O'Neal Cruz, Key Brian Hayes, Nick Gonzalez, maybe Mason Martin or a free agent in the infield. Where does that put Liover Peguero, though? Do you move Cruz out to the outfield again? But then you also have to keep in mind that you have Caden Smith and Jigba, Cal Mitchell, Jack Sawinski, Travis Swaggerty, which we'll talk about in the next player profiles. You have those guys. So the Pirates have something going for them right now, Adam, and you put it perfectly. They have a lot of prospect capital right now, which when you're a bad team is the thing you want to have. Because I always like to go back to saying it's like throwing darts. The more darts you have in your hand, the better chance you have to hitting a bullseye. The Pirates, to me, from being where I am as a Pirates fan and what they're doing right now, I have never personally seen them with a prospect pool like this. The last time I could remember is when Andrew McCutchen was in the prospect pool and when Mitch Keller was a top 10 prospect in all of baseball. And even then, this prospect pool was not that deep. So any final thoughts on the middle infield before we close up today's episode, Adam?
Yeah, I think it's also interesting if you do have a nice year with maybe you win more games than you expect. Maybe they get into that 70 to 75 neighborhood. Is it possible that you start looking at this team in a 2011, 2012 mindset where you start moving prospects for, proven guys that might be able to help you? Like, I think of Wandy Rodriguez. I think of, Chris Snyder, some of those guys that weren't exactly, big contributing pieces to the winning teams that were to come. But the organization started moving the posture to bringing guys like that in. And I think some of these prospects could be a way to make that happen. As you were suggesting, maybe at first base, maybe that helps you get a guy at first base for the long run. So that's, kind of what I'm looking for, come this time next year.
Oh, yeah, of course. And I think that's a great way to view it. And we will be wrapping up today's episode, of course, with Adam telling you what he has going on over at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, everything that's going on. One of the things that I definitely am upset about already is that Kenny Pickett is skipping the Peach Bowl. I'm not very happy about it, but I guess it is what it is when he's going to be in a Steeler uniform next year. But, Adam, what else are you working on over there at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette right now?
Yeah, I'll be working for Steelers Titans this week with our wonderful team on Sunday at 1 o'clock. I will be also working for the Peach Bowl on the night before New Year's Eve. So keep an eye on everything at post-gazette.com. Still a lot of great content, even though the holidays are coming and a lot of people's work is slowing down. For us, a lot of stuff is just heating up. So check out post-gazette.com and please consider subscribing because you help us do the journalism we love to do every day.
Of course. And guys, you already know where you can find me. You can find me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, Twitter, YouTube, Google Play, all of that good stuff. Adam's Twitter is right down here where my Twitter is. My Twitter, of course, at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates. Adam's Twitter is at FujiMaster24. But now if you're on YouTube, you can see that it's spelled with a G and not a J. Adam, thank you so much for hopping in today. Always fun with you on Fridays. Of course, guys, by the way, I did promise you a double episode today, so stay tuned later in today for yet another player profile. It'll just be me. It will not be with Adam. But, Adam, thank you so much. Guys, have a wonderful rest of your Friday. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and I will see you on the flip side.